Hello everyone, Donny Carr here. Welcome to In the Studio and welcome to the second part of this low-end mini-series here. So in the first video, I processed and layered a kick. In this video, I'm going to program a bass line along with a few low percussion parts. So since the last video, I added a snare loop and another little top loop just so I have a couple more elements going to work to. So let's refresh our memories here on what we have so far. Okay, so let's start with the bass line. So for this, I'm going to use Native Instruments Monarch, and I have it pulled up here. This is the default sound. That's not what I want, so let's initialize a new patch to design our bass. And then I'm just going to simply plot down a sustained note here. I think I'm just going to go with a G note. That's too low. There we go. Because my kick's playing G, so they should gel nicely together. Okay, so we have that done. Let's, I'm just going to turn this filter down here, and I'm just going to solo the bass for a second while we're working on this. Okay, so oscillator 1, I want to be a saw, and I'm going to turn the octave up here. Let's enable oscillator 2. I'm going to turn this one down an octave, and I'm going to detune this against the first oscillator. You can hear extreme. Somewhere about there, you can hear the two oscillators kind of beating against each other, and it's creating a nice little bit of movement. I'm going to introduce a little bit of load here. Just going to give it a little bit more body and attitude. And we'll just kind of dial in the envelopes now. So we'll keep the sustain all the way up on the amplitude envelope. Let's see here, let's push the contour up, which is the depth of the filter envelope. Be a little bit of resonance. Okay, I think that's pretty good for now. Yeah. I want to give this some compression. So I'm going to use the LA2A for this, which has a really nice smooth character to it. Yeah, that's nice. Let's play that with the kick. That needs some side chain, so just do that really quick. Okay. Now this definitely needs some of the low end taken away from it. So I'm just going to add a simple low cut here. Now in the next video, I'll kind of dial this in as far as where to set the cutoff. We'll really dial that in, but for now I'm just going to roll off up to around 45, and in the next video we'll figure out where exactly to set that. Okay. Now I want to send this bass through a reverb. So I have an auxiliary track set up over here. We're going to run our bass through that. So let's add a few plugins here. First, I need a reverb. So let's use the Valhalla Vintage Verb. I think the Concert Hall default will be just fine for this. I'm just going to turn down the decay a little bit. I'm going to leave it on 100% because we're on a send here. And I'm going to just kick up the low cut a bit. And I think the 1970s color is just great. So I'll leave that alone as well. The next thing I'm going to do here is add a plugin, a little alter boy, that we can pitch this reverb up by a fifth. So we'll go up 7 semitones, and we'll turn the mix all the way up, and I'll just add a little bit of drive here too. Let's hear what that sounds like. Nice. Cool, I like that. I'm just going to give that a little bit of delay as well. And this will give us a little bit more movement too. So let's pull back on the cutoff. I'll increase the feedback. And we'll switch this to ping pong, and I'll pan it over to the left. So we get a little bit of back and forth movement with the reverb. And then just to make sure we're not getting too many stray frequencies in the low end and up top, I'll add another EQ. So I'm going to roll off everything, let's say below 200 or so. And then around 5K maybe up top. Okay. Cool. Nice. Nice. Cool. So I'm going to mute the bass for a second. I'm happy with that for now. Let's kind of focus on some percussion. So I have a couple samples picked out. And the first one is this tom. So let's program a simple little pattern for this. Something like that will work. Really simple. Let's see. No. I think this will work. I'm just going to grab these 16th notes here, and let's just scooch those over a little bit so they're not right on the grid. Give them a little bit of swing. Cool. That works. Now, it's important to keep in mind when you're programming and dealing with percussion that more often than not, these types of percussion sounds have a very distinct pitch. So you need to keep in mind that you might need to tune them. So, for instance, this tom here is playing a D note there, which this track is kind of going in the direction of maybe G minor, so D would work great, which falls in that scale, but just something to think about when you're programming percussion. So we're good there with the pitch, but let's treat this tom a little bit. So I'm just going to solo it for a second, and I'm going to run it through this omega N, give it some saturation. So let's turn without it and with. Yeah, subtle, but I think it's just giving a little bit more life to those toms. Yeah. The next thing I'm going to try here is this DBX 160. This little compressor, I think, works great on percussive sounds. It really brings out the front end in a really nice way. So let's give this a try here. That's way too much compression. I'm going to push the threshold up. Something about like right there. Yeah, without it and with. Yeah, I just like what it's doing to especially the front end of that sound, of that tom. Okay, so I'm going to leave that on there. I'm liking that. And then I'll just give this a little bit of side chain as well. Going to play it with the rest of the drums, but I'll keep the bass muted for a second. Yeah, somewhere about there. Cool. So I think for now, the toms are good to go. Let's move on. The next little percussive sound is this little conga, which I picked out. And I just want to use this at the very end of this little 2-bar loop here. So we'll just do a little hit on the offbeat here. And while we're working on this one, just for a second, I think this one needs to be pitched differently. Yeah. So let's have a look. You can see this one is clearly playing a B note. So let's pitch this down to a G. So yeah, the B4 semitones. Yeah, that's sounding much better. Cool. And just going to loop up this last beat here, and while I'm treating these, or this little percussive hit here, this little conga. So I'm going to treat it kind of the same way that I did with the tom, but I'm going to use some different plugins just to give it a slightly different flavor. So I'm going to use the twin tube to give it some saturation. Yeah. Let's pull back on the gain just a little bit. Yeah. Just adding a little boost there. So I like that. And then I'm going to bring out the front end a little bit on this one as well, but instead of using a compressor, I'll use a transient designer. Just a little bit. There we go. I'm liking that. And then for this one, I want to do something a little bit different. Let's run it through a reverb, but instead of just a standard reverb, I want to try this convolution reverb. There's some really interesting presets in here. You can run it through all kinds of real world spaces. But I'm going to try some of these spring presets here. So I'm going to play this back with the elements, the drum elements. It's kind of interesting. That one's kind of interesting. I'll just go with that for now, just for the sake of the video, so I don't waste any more of your time. But this is a nice way to maybe bring in and out like a subtle extra layer to a sound that you can automate in the arrangement, for instance. Yeah, I think that works. Cool. So that is the bass and low percussions sorted for this video. Yeah, in the next video I will just tighten up the mixing a little bit, and I'll do a few mixing moves to get all these elements kind of sitting a little bit more comfortably together. So hopefully you enjoyed this one. Hopefully you took something away from it, and I'll see you very soon. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.